Hi. Um, Today we're going to work on learning how to use circular needles, and they are a little tricky and it takes a little bit of practice, so don't get frustrated if you don't get them right away. And the longer you've been using the single, like 2 sticks, you might take a little bit more practice, but I will tell you, when you learn to work with the circulars like this, you can make just about anything with these. And especially if you want to learn how to make socks, these are the best things to make socks with, because the only other option you have to make socks is 5 needles at a time. And although a lot of people have really enjoyed doing 5 needles, I'm one of them. I like 5 needles, but once I started using the circular needles, it just made making socks a whole lot easier. And then once you make 1 sock on a circular needle, then you'll try for making 2 socks at a time. So with that said, there are a few little tricks to circular needles. The one is, when you have your cable like this, it likes to turn, it's been rolled in a circle. One way you can get that to unroll is to let it soak in warm water for a while before you attach it to your needles. You can also try using your hand, the warmth from your hand, and just running it back and forth over your needle. If that doesn't bother you, that's great, because it's really hard to get the kinks completely out of your needles. The one thing that I try to do, if you watch me twirl, I'm twirling my right hand needle, my cable gets tighter and tighter. So if it's getting tighter, just go ahead and untwirl it until you can kind of get it to look almost like that, so that it's almost a U, and that'll help too. The other thing is, you could always put something heavy on the end of this to hold it down so that it's not in your way while you're knitting until you get used to it. So there's lots of things you can do to kind of help alleviate some of the irritations of double point needles. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this on here just to kind of show you how that works. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cast on. And I generally do a very stretchy, unless it's for something that I need a specific cast on for. So I generally use this very stretchy cast on. And in order to do that, I will take 2 fingers, hold just a small tail down with my thumb. I'm going to wrap it once. The second time I wrap it, I'm going to pull it behind these 2 fingers and hold it away from my first wrap. So then I'm going to take one end of my needle, my circular. I'm going to take it under the first yarn, over the second yarn, and then pull that second yarn through and make a slip knot. Now you can just start with a slip knot, but once you get knitting, this becomes very easy to do. So then, the best thing to do with your circular needles is learn how to cast on first. Take your time to learn how to cast on, and you'll really start to master how to use these circular needles. They are a little bit tricky at first. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. So casting on, again, we're going to go ahead and take our first needle up through that tail, up through the tail here, wrap it from back to front, catch it, make them equal, and then take your left hand needle and go under that stitch and pull it. And I like to just give both of my ends, this end and this end, just a little bit tug on the first one. So let's do that again. We're going to go, and you can see I'm going between these 2 tails, legs we call them, and up. I'm going to take my working yarn, I'm going to wrap it from front to back, and I'm going to catch it on here, and I'm going to take my left hand needle and put it between those 2 tails, those 2 legs, and then take it off my right hand needle. Let's do that again. I'm going to go up between here, wrap it down, make them equal, equalize them, take your left-hand needle between those two legs, and you can separate it with your finger if you need to. Put that yarn over it, and then take the left-hand needle out and tighten it a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that again. This is one of the best ways to get used to your circular needles. Also, it doesn't hurt to put something on that to hold it out of your way, because that can get a little frustrating when you're first learning. Okay, we've taken it up through the legs. We're going to go ahead and wrap it back to front, roll it, make them equal, and then I separate my legs. Put that left-hand needle between them, and there we go. Let's do it again. And there's nothing wrong with taking this and casting on 10 or 20, taking them off and starting again. Until you get used to your circular needles, the best way to do it is just practice, practice, practice. That's how we learn any new skill that we're doing. Okay. And so I'm going to cast on about 10. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. I don't want to have a whole lot of working stitches because it's just easier to kind of show you some of the skills we have to do. So once I've done that, you'll see what I'll do is now this is my working yarn and this is my tail. And you want a really pretty short tail so that you don't accidentally start knitting with that tail. So I'm going to move all of these stitches to my left onto my cable. And since I only have 10, I'm going to count 2, 4, 5, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. And you can see I've separated those stitches so that I can see my cable. I'm going to grab that cable, and you can bend it, it won't hurt it, bend it, and then start pulling the side of your loose needle. Okay. So then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push these onto my needle, and then I'm going to hold this down again just to get it out of my way. Now, what you want to do is you want to go ahead, let me get that back up on my silver so that you can just kind of see it a lot easier so that it doesn't slide down. Okay, you want to push your tail away, this little leftover tail, just push it out of the way so it's not there. So what you want to look at, you have nubs when you've cast on. And I'm going to pull this up just a little bit closer for you to see. And those nubs, when you look at them, the nubs are all on this side and this side. And when you go ahead and take your needles together, you want to make sure that those nubs are pretty much in the center, all of them in the center. And that's how you can tell that you haven't gotten your line twisted. You don't want to twist this. You want to keep them so that all of your nubs are kind of in the center. And once you do, the other thing you'll want to make sure of is keep your working thread, this working thread, if you're right-handed, you want to keep it on your right-hand side, okay? And your waist tail is going to be on your left-hand side. So then what I do is I basically just push these, and you can forget about the right-hand needle, but the left-hand needle, I get them as close to my knitting point as I can. And I will hold this little tail down with my fingers. Okay, now you can see I'm still not twisted. Those aren't twisted. So I'm going to pull my right-hand needle out. And I leave myself just a little bit of loop there. Okay. And now this, if it's in your way, just twist it until it gets back out of your way. And again, you can put something over it if you need to. Not a big deal. Just make sure you have enough working space with this part. So I'm going to go ahead and knit. Now, my yarn is to the back, and we're just going to knit this first part. So I'm going to put my needle through my stitch. I'm going to take my yarn and wrap it back to front. And this one I'm going to take off. Okay, I'm going to do it again, put my needle through my legs of my yarn, wrap it, and take it off. There's 2. I'm going to take my needle, wrap it, take it off. There's 3. Needle, wrap it, take it off. There's 4. Needle, wrap it, take it off. There's 5. Now, what you're going to find is, all of a sudden, I'm going to move this, all of a sudden, you're out of knitting room. So keep these stitches on your right hand needle and pull your cable, and then you can push it. And then again, on the first row, you want to make sure that all of your bumps are in the center. And I'm going to push this down till I have pretty much my point. My right hand needle, I'm going to pull out, and again, sometimes you can twist those needles, okay? And again, I'm going to flip this so that that little hump in my chain, my cable, I'm going to push it so it's in the back, so it's out of my way, so that I just have my needle to work with. Now, you want to go ahead and hold these pretty close together. This stitch on your right hand needle or cable, and this stitch, try to keep them in line. It'll help to not make so many what we call ladders, big spaces between the stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my needle and put it through my legs of my first stitch, wrap it, take it off, do the same thing. Wrap it, take it off, wrap it, take it off, 4, 5. Now, again, what you're going to notice, and some of you may have a little bit of a ladder between here, and that's okay. So we want to do the same thing. We want to turn it so that our working yarn is on the right-hand side, and our cable is on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to pull it, and sometimes as I pull it I twist it so that I get this nice U here. If it's twisted, let's see if I can get it twisted back out of the way. Yeah, if it's twisted weird like that, all you have to do is take your cable and as you're pulling, just turn it a little bit until it straightens itself out like that. And so then I'm going to push this back down through these stitches, get all my stitches on my needle as best I can. And this is the 3rd time. You want to make sure that you have all of your nubs in the center. You don't want part of them over here and part of them over. That means you've twisted your stitches. Okay, so my working yarn is coming off of my right hand needle to my right. And I'm going to go ahead and put this down on here for a minute. I'm going to pull this right hand needle until I have just a little bit of a tail. Now you see how that's twisted, this part. Again, I'm going to just flip my needle until all that's in the back. It's out of my way, and so it's not bothering me. So then one more time, I'm going to make sure that this last stitch on my right hand cable is in line with the first stitch I want to do. I want to put that through and knit those off. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now you're not going to have a problem twisting stitches. They're pretty much all going to stay the same. But again, let's look at this. You can see this is just kind of wrapping funny. So I want to pull this cable, and as I do, I'm going to twist it again till I get that nice little U, just about like that. You can put your arm on it, push your stitches all onto your needle, your left-hand needle. Get that little out of the way. You can hold it with your thumb. And now you don't have to worry about ladders so much now. They're going to kind of be in line so that they're going to take care of themselves. And we're going to go ahead and knit these off. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so where my cable is, I'm going to twist it a little bit so that I get that nice U. I'm going to pull until I feel resistance from my needle. Then I'm going to push them through my stitches. And see, even I get it really tight sometimes, so you just kind of have to work them a little bit. If you keep your stitches close together, they'll move better. If you pull them apart, they get tighter and tighter. So if you kind of keep them close together and they're getting stuck at the end, just hold them together a little bit and just gently keep pushing until they get up there. Okay, now my working yarn again is coming from this last stitch. You can see it on my right needle. I'm going to go ahead and pull my cable, and it didn't twist this time. Hey, nice for me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and knit these off. There we go. Okay, again, I'm going to pull this through till I hit resistance. I'm going to push all of my stitches kind of together. So that's the other tip I'm going to give you. My working yarn is on the right-hand needle. I'm going to pull this. So when you do your first stitch, if you can see, that stitch is on a wire. It's not on a needle. If I pull that really tight, the next time I go to put these stitches up on my needle, it's going to be too tight to get up over my needle. So you don't want to pull this too tight when you're knitting. Just a little bit of tension. And then knit those off. So let me do a couple stitches and show you what I mean. And that's not too tight. Okay. So I'm going to pull this really tight. I'm going to pull my needle out, and I'm going to pull this really tight. Okay, you can see it's just really tight up against that cable. And when I knit this and pull, I keep pulling, I keep it tight. Now we won't notice till the next time we go around. So let me go ahead and go around and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the stitch that I pulled very, very tight, and it's tight on the cable. When I go to pull that through, I'm not going to be able to get that onto my needle because my needle is bigger than my cable. So you do want to be aware of that. That's very important that you kind of give your, if you get it tight like that, I have a video showing you how to unknit. And if it gets too tight, see, I can't even get it up on my needle. So these are the things you just have to practice. And I'm going to pull this off. I'm just going to pull it off. You can unknit if you like. Unknitting is another video that I have, so that if you get something too tight. But it's just easier if you make sure that you haven't pulled that thread so tight against your cable that it's not going to go up over this bigger needle. So those are things you want to watch out for. So I'm not even going to mess with this. I'm going to cut this off because this is just my practice. I just use this thread and for practice. And I'm going to go ahead and cut these right off my cable. So be careful not to cut your cable if you have to do this. You don't want your cable cut. Okay, so I'm gonna work through this again with you if you want to, and you can watch it or you don't have to. I'm gonna make sure that my needles are kind of like this. Okay. And when I turn them, I'm going to put something heavy on the end of that cable just so it doesn't get in my way to frustrate me. This is the one, the left one is the one you want to pick up your first stitch with. We're going to go ahead and hold that down with our thumb, wrap it once, And then the second time, I'm going to use my finger to keep it out of the way. I'm going to use my left part of my needle, go under the first stitch, over the second yarn, and pull it through and make myself a nice little slip knot. Okay. And so then I'm going to pick up my other side and I'm going to start casting on one. And remember, the first one, kind of tighten down both of them a little bit so that this stays out of your way. And then just go ahead and cast on again. Oops, I pulled that one off. Okay. And we're going to do 10 again, just because it's easy to knit through 10 rather than 30 or 40 stitches to get to turning. And until you learn how to turn with cable needles, just cast on a few in practice. Don't cast on a big project. Learn how to just practice. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and this will be 10. Okay, now you remember when I had 10 on, once I had 10 on, I went ahead and pulled it down to my cable. Now, check this out. See how loose that is on my cable? That's pretty much how you want it when you're turning each. You don't want to pull these so tight on the cable, again, that they won't move up on your needle. So I'm going to count to 5, 2, 4, 5, and I want to split it there. So I'm going to bend my cable kind of in half. I'm going to grab that cable and start pulling. Okay, and then just carefully push these up on your needles. Now I'm going to show you, I have these twisted because these are out here and these are in here, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to, and my working thread is on my left hand needle. So I want that on my right. So all I do is I just flip these around so that my thread's on the back. Okay, let's lay this on here just to keep it out of our way for now. And let's push these up. I'm going to push this waist out on the other side so that I can basically just see my nibs, my little nibs. And if you look at that, they're in a row if you're on straight needles, but when you're on circulars, you kind of have to get your nibs in the middle of your work, just like that. And you can see, there are my nibs. And I want to keep those, and the more stitches you cast on, the more difficult it is to make sure all those nibs line up in the middle. But it's just a matter of, if you take your time in the beginning, you'll do just fine. So I have my stitches pushed up on my left hand needle. Again, I'm making sure that all my nibs are in the center. I'm going to pull this and I'm going to start knitting. So my working yarn is in the back. I don't want it that tight. That's a little bit tight. Otherwise it won't go up on my needle. Okay, don't pull this too tight. Give yourself a little bit of room to breathe. And then let's go ahead and knit these off. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so again, I still have my nibs in the middle and my cable's a little twisted to my left. So as I pull my cable, I'm going to turn it, and there they are. I'm going to push my stitches up on my left hand needle. I got it a little tight. Left hand needle, push them clear to the end. Make sure all your nibs are in the middle again. And I'm going to pull my right hand needle, and then I'm going to start knitting. Okay, and don't pull that first stitch very tight. You don't want it super loose, but you don't want it so tight that it's not going to go up over this needle again the next time you move it. Okay, again, now this will be our second row, and sometimes you get that little, you get what we call a ladder there. Don't worry about that this time. Again, my cable is twisting, so as I pull it, I'm going to pull it so that that kind of comes up like that. I've just found that this is the easiest for me to work. It keeps everything kind of in line. Let me pull those together so they fall better. There we go. And my working yarn is on my right-hand needle. I'm going to pull this out. I'm keeping these stitches kind of in line together. And again, I don't want to pull too tight because then I won't be able to get it up over my needle next time. And as you knit with circular needles, it'll just become automatic for you to know how much pressure, how much pull you can put on a stitch before it's going to be too tight to get up over your cable, your needle next time. And depending on the size of your needle is going to count too, because if you're working on like a size 1 or 2, which isn't even as big as like a needle, it's very small, those are going to be easier than if you're using a great big needle like this, because you have to get more yarn pulled up over this needle. Okay, I'm going to pull again. These are in line. And sometimes if you just hold everything with your thumb, there we go. And I'm actually starting to get a pretty nice little fabric here. So I'm going to do it one more time with you. Ooh, I don't want to pull that one. I want to pull this one. And I might twist that. Now you can see I have just a terrible mess here, so I want to see which way I need to pull my cable. And I might want to twist some of these a little bit. Yep, I'm making it worse. So I'm going to twist my needle this way and this way some more. There we go. I got it. Okay, I'm going to put all of my threads, as many as I can. Push them together so that they can come up better. Push them to the end. There's my working yarn. Pull it. Keep those kind of together, and there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can see, I'm starting to get a really nice fabric. It's not twisted, so all of my stitches are really coming together nicely. And that's about all there is, really, to circular knitting. It's just a matter of the first row and then half of the second, getting that second row started, that you really have to worry about twisting your needles, your threads. And so if you can keep it straight through those that first row and getting started into the second row, you'll be fine. And again, practice. Don't cast on 50 stitches for your first project. Cast on about 10 and play with it until you're really sure that you can keep your stitches straight, keep everything from getting too tight to move on needles, and then you'll be okay. Really, just practice a little bit. Take a little bit of time to practice. If you take the time to practice now, a month from now when you're making projects, you're going to feel a whole lot better about yourself, and it's just going to come automatic. So the big thing is just practice, and don't feel bad about having to practice. We've all been there. Anybody who's ever knit. And if they say they haven't, then you just smile at them and nod your head like, yeah, you're crazy, but I'm not going to say that to you, because everybody has to start somewhere and practice. Okay, thanks for joining me. I hope this has been helpful. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.